Lauren Elise Rogers. Welcome to the Fieldswell Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren.
It's my pleasure. You might be the first Lauren I've had on, which is fun.
It is so fun. It's so fun. What year were you born?
93.
Okay, 85 for me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, sometimes I meet like individuals who were all born at the same time, but we've got a little bit of difference between us.
We do. So you're a certified embodied intimacy and relationship coach, helping people build fulfilling relationships and vibrant, empowered sex lives. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Most people do want this, even if it's some hidden and suppressed desire of those. I do find that most people want this.
Yeah. Definitely. It could be suppressed. So, you've spoken openly about growing up in a very religious environment. I'm curious how that shaped your early beliefs around sex and relationships.
It's such a contrast, and thank you for this good question, because I grew up watching my parents be very affectionate and relational, and everyone knew they had a good sex life. It was a running joke, don't go into their basement suite. I mean, I grew up witnessing sexuality, which was wonderful, and yet was given zero education. I was homeschooled. You kind of alluded to this idea that I had grown up in repressive religious culture. And I mean, it was very sheltered. So no sex ed, no understanding of my own pleasure as my birthright, no understanding of even the fact that women did masturbate. Nothing. The one sole piece of sexuality education I was given was the night before my wedding, when my mother, who was dying of pancreatic cancer, said to me, Lauren, just take care of his own needs and everything will be fine.
Wow.
The funny part of this story, and anyone who follows me on social media will know, is that I then entered into a marriage for a decade to a man who is now happily gay. Wow. And so taking care of his sexual needs was not something that was ever going to happen.
It was never going to be enough because it wasn't what he wanted.
No, it wasn't his truest desire. But he had also been raised in a similar culture where homosexuality was looked on as a quote unquote sin.
So he, at the same time, wasn't raised being able to talk about it. So he didn't even know, you both were like so young also getting into this. I look at it now, I'm 31 and have yet to be married. And of course the younger me would have been like, okay, we'll be married out of college. But now I'm like, I'm so glad that didn't happen because I've had so much time to figure out who I really am and what my deepest desires are.
Right. And isn't that interesting? As I've gone on to study human development, sexual development, the age that I got married, 21, far too young. It happens for lots of people, and they go on to build beautiful relationship containers that break and are reformed over time. We all know those love stories. They're precious. They're wonderful. I do not want to disrespect them. And yet we all know there's so much research on the frontal lobe not even being developed at that age, right? This understanding, all of these heroes' journeys and heroines' journeys that we need to go on to understand who we are. I knew none of that. Sweet, sweet little me.
Little Lauren. So, divorce, especially in the religious, remind me what religion you were raised in?
I was raised in Christianity.
Okay. And so divorce can be especially taboo. How did you, what gave you the courage to finally say this isn't working?
Your audience will really appreciate this. A wise older woman started having dreams about me. Visceral dreams about me. And so she took me on a walk one day and she said, Lauren, what's going on? And at that time, she was a member of my board of directors for a nonprofit that I was running. So I thought she meant something related to the nonprofit. No. She said, no, I just have this deep feeling that something really scary is going on at home. And what she didn't know is that my then husband, who had suppressed his homosexuality, would turn into one of three characters on any given night, was experiencing these parasomnias. It was horror and hell in my home. And so she was, after she heard the story, said, let's get you into counseling. And one counseling session, just one, this counselor's jaw was on the floor. I'll never forget her face at what I was enduring day after day. And she said, okay, I hear you that you think divorce is a sin. So what if we give your then husband some boundaries? And if he can follow these and if he can start to get his own help, great. Sure enough, Lauren, in 1 week, he had burst through all of these. And it was the first time that I ever saw oh, this is unhealthy.
Right.
So we moved to separation, which of course had this pure intent inside of my Christianity to redeem the marriage and come back and all these types of things. But as I got more healthy and more whole, I was able to see how unfit we were for each other and moved towards the divorce. And you're exactly right. Inside of the system that I was existing in, that was a no-no. That was taboo. And I lost everything. Because I chose divorce, I lost my community, I lost my home, I lost my friends. I became a threat to my friends' husbands because now I was this single woman who could tempt them. It was an utter crumbling of everything I knew.
Wow. I mean, looking out, like, I just feel like there must be so many other individuals who are in that position now that you found yourself in then, who feel like trapped or stuck and just like not see a way out. What advice or message do you have for those individuals?
You are not alone. That the first step can be a small one. And I am always so thankful for the teeny tiny little steps that little Lauren took to bring her to now. I think for so many of us, we can feel that stuckness. We can feel that fear and that terror when we are existing inside of any system that seeks to control our humanness or our sexuality. And so I would say just take baby steps. It doesn't need to be overnight. It doesn't need to be some radical transformation. One baby step forward is a beautiful first step.
And I know the life that you lived, like following as you're coming out of that divorce, wasn't this like glamorous life as you like took steps to rebuild your life. Talk to us about like those moments and kind of the steps you took to get to where you are now, who is someone who is like so free and openly sharing their story.
Yeah. Do you ever get asked that question? What's one of the most transformational moments you remember in your life? Yes. So this is one of mine, and it's always so neat to look back on. So after I lost my home and my family and had no work, because I was a stay-at-home mom, yes, running this nonprofit, but making $500 a month, which barely covers groceries. I was living in this teeny tiny basement apartment. And there was this moment where I was scrubbing the floor in this basement apartment in the most unsafe part of my incredibly conservative, restrictive town. And the door was open, like the screen door was open. A breeze blew through. I was listening to music, and there was this moment, Lauren, it's going to make me cry.
Oh my gosh.
Where I thought, I think this might be the worst things could ever get. I could hardly afford anything. My daughter was sleeping in bed with me. Her father had lost all custody at that point because of an alcohol relapse. It was bad, bad, bad. I had no one. And I felt joyful. I felt more free than I had ever felt within the confines of what I had grown up in. And I thought, you know what? If I am okay right now, anything can happen. Anything is possible, because if this is the lowest, I've got me. I have this foundation. I was learning to romance myself, learning to date myself, making love to myself, taking these luscious showers in my freezing cold little apartment that a rat died in the wall and we couldn't find it. The smell was so horrid. I mean, if you can imagine it, it existed in this teeny tiny murders were happening across the street. I mean, it was very bad. And I need everyone to know that sometimes that groundedness, I love that the root of the word humbled is the same thing as hummus, is the same thing as of the earth. And I was humbled to my core. I lost everything. And yet at that point I felt, oh, this is me. Mama Earth has got me. I am here. I am planted. And now I can only grow.
Yeah. There's nothing in your way.
No.
You're like, bring it on.
Bring it on.
You brought me to my knees.
Yes.
And the future is mine to create. And that's so beautiful to hear, like, romanticize your life.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it was at that point that I began thinking, okay, so I was always taught that my worthiness was attached to my quote unquote purity. And so now I'm no longer a virgin, which I was on my wedding night. Am I a whore? Right. And so then I started to really dig into who am I as a
Yeah.
sexual being? And it was that moment that started the
Wow.
work that I do now. I
Wow.
started having these sexual encounters. Some of them were good, some of them were bad, but I didn't feel shame around them. I felt that they were more educational and juicy sometimes, and sometimes really not fulfilling. And I thought, I think I've been lied to. I think that there is a lot of beauty here, and that I think that I have the intuition to understand that I could lead a pleasure-focused life. I think that I could lead with, does this feel good in my body, as opposed to, my heart is deceitful above all things, which is how I had been led.
The moment we get to choose our own belief system and update the belief system that may no longer be serving us.
Exactly. You know, good old Betty Dodson, who is one of our founding mothers of sexuality education, always says that the first principle of pleasure is the freedom of personal choice. That right to say yes or no. That right to say or no, not for me.
Not for me. But I think it's also like leaning into that, like what you're drawn to and what you internally desire, and feeling like okay doing that and feeling excited to do that, to lean in and to go after what you want.
Yes. But I think before we can go after what we want, we need to know what we want. And I think to that point that you and I were referencing, our earlier 21-year-old selves, there's not a lot of self-knowledge at that time, which is okay. It's interesting with my clients now, I work on the sex negative and pleasure negative beliefs that might have been planted in our sexual gardens at 7, 14, and 21. And isn't it interesting that at each of those ages, developmentally, we are growing and becoming, but also we are becoming believers of certain things. And so just interesting that 21 in that paradigm is still a foundational learning period. And yet I was betrothing myself to someone.
Right.
So funny.
Very much so. Very much so. So Lauren, for our listeners, say someone is just beginning to look at their sexuality with curiosity. What's step one in like defining or redefining their relationship with sex and intimacy?
Well, let's just jump from what I was just sharing. So what I encourage anyone to do, if they're listening right now, is pause this recording and consider who and what was influencing your sexual beliefs at 7, 14, and 21. Who were you? What was going on in life? Where were you in this world? What were your parents teaching you about romance and sex? Were you sexually active at 14? And if so, what did those sexual partners have to say about your life? Were you starting your menstrual cycle? And was anyone talking to you about this body of yours? 7, 14, and 21. Make a little list. Now, I want you to ask yourself these questions. I want you to go back in your body, and I want you to pretend you're 7. And I want you to fill in these blanks. Sex is, fill in the blank. My body belongs to, fill in the blank. Romance is, relationships are. Now, I want you to skip ahead to 14. Same exact questions. Sex is, fill in the blank. My body belongs to, fill in the blank. My role is, fill in the blank. To stay safe, I, fill in the blank. Relationships are, fill in the blank. Then the same exact thing at 21. I want you to really sit with these answers because they might feel explicit. They might feel not even important to your life right now. And if so, pat yourself on the back because that's growth. That is, you were weeding your garden subconsciously. We are all able to do that. Now, you might also have these latent sex negative beliefs. They kind of feel like a dandelion, the roots that get down there in the garden, and you no longer believe this thing, nor do you align with the person who taught you this belief. That's a latent sex negative or pleasure negative or body negative belief. And work on your own, work with a sexuality educator or intimacy coach. You can get those out of your garden. You're totally able. We are incredible humans. Then the deepest level of sex negative belief would be a body-based sex negative belief. And Rev Bev, the one who taught me some of these pieces, truly equates that to soil blight. Now, a good gardener knows that soil blight needs time, It needs space. It needs rest. It needs sunlight. It needs manure spread around, a lot of fertilizer. It is not that we cannot heal sick soil. We can. And yet, these are some of the deep ones in our bodies that I encourage, if you are listening to this podcast today, and as you thought of those, sex is or relationships are memories attached at 7 or 14 or 21, I fully encourage you to reach out to someone. Do this work alongside someone who can tenderly nurture you just in the way a good farmer would.
Wow. So beautiful. This going into the somatics, like the deep somatics. And it's almost like, what is the book? The Body Keeps Score.
It's so interesting that we are recording this right now, because 2 days ago would have been my 18th wedding anniversary to my now happily gay ex-husband. And wouldn't you know, speaking of that incredible work, I woke up on Sunday morning, which was May the 4th, which was my original anniversary. And I was happy and everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, it's like this cloud descended upon my body, and I felt tears brimming. I felt this heaviness in my body, and I took a deep breath and I listened to myself and went, oh, this was my wedding anniversary. This was the day that everything started to crumble. And the body remembered. The body remembered. And this isn't to say that I now carry this around like luggage on my back that I'll never get rid of. No. But she deserved some time and attention and some love, because they are body-based beliefs. I was 21 when I got married. So again, now that we've overlapped this work, we can see that my role as a wife, right, to satisfy my husband's needs, still lives in a little bit of that soil. And so the answer isn't to shame myself. The answer is to treat her with lots of goodness.
To give yourself all of that love that you may have been seeking externally.
Yes. And wouldn't it be, it's interesting. So fast forward many years, I went on to meet this incredible human who's my now partner and husband. And even as we're having this conversation, it just hit me, Lauren, that I have been feeling very, like I'm failing him, quote unquote, which is so interesting. And I am so thankful for this conversation, because it just hit me. Oh, that's an old belief. That's not tied to him. That is not a part of our makeup. That's the old belief connected to my first marriage. And no wonder over the past few days, I have felt that stirring in my nervous system, because it's attached to this time of year in my body.
Yeah. I say we all have like outdated programming running our subconscious mind. And so it's important, just like you update an iPhone every couple weeks, like how often are you updating your own programming with, who you desire to become, how you want to be feeling, as opposed to what you don't want, or memories from the past that only exist as a fragment of imagination inside of your mind.
Exactly. No, I use my menstrual cycle often to edit, right? I view it as, just like an iPhone, we get these updates on our software, and I use my menstrual cycle every month to kind of let go of beliefs that are no longer serving, things that I was trying to do over the past month as an entrepreneur. But nope, I've lost the desire and the fire for, just like you have a bug in your iPhone system, or they try to do this app upgrade and they're like, no, that didn't work. That's okay. There's so much grace for me.
What's interesting is I was on birth control for a while. And so I just stopped getting a period because of that. I recently stopped taking it, which I'm very grateful to have stopped taking it. But now that I'm not on it, every time I get my period, I'm like these thoughts and emotions are coming to me that I'm almost not used to them, because I went such a long point of time without them. And I'm like, why is this every time I get my period, these like same thoughts keep coming up? And I'm like, do I really tune into these, or are these just coming up because it's my period?
Can I share my opinion,
Please.
like what I've worked through? So it's so funny that we're talking about this, because this was not on our like ideas. So in that moment on the basement floor in my basement apartment, as I healed my soul, I started having these really hard periods, emotionally and physically. And I thought, you know what? I'm healing the rest of me. Why don't I just look my menstrual cycle straight in the eye and start to really do some digging here? Because is this truth that is bubbling up every month? So what I decided to view my menstrual cycle as, over much study, was an amplification of truth in my body. So what I do in the days leading up to my menstrual cycle, which is where I am right now, and on my first day, is truly sit with the things that are being amplified. I don't do anything about them. I write them down. I put them in a journal because what I view my wise body as now is it's almost like it's got one of those megaphones up. Like, will you listen to me, Lauren?
Yes.
Are you going to acknowledge that this body is wise? Will you listen? And so I say, yes, body. Yes, I will. And so I write the things down. I write them down. So day one is my true let go day. I ask myself what relationships are no longer serving me, what business ventures are no longer serving me. What do I need to let go of?
Yeah.
Then day two, I call my giggle day. Day two, I don't take myself seriously. I don't attend to any of those things. I know they're written down. I know that the universe or God or goddess will show me what needs to bubble up. Day two, I laugh. I watch funny memes. I do all the silliness. Day three, I start to give myself permission to dream. Okay, so I start to think in this next month ahead, what do I want? Back to that original question. What do I want? I don't make any plans. I just dream. One of my favorite quotes is, before you plan, dream a little. So I give myself permission to dream on day three. Then day 4, 5, 6, however long one's menstrual cycle is, I come back to earth. I move my body. I approach my life with thankfulness and gratefulness. Then by the end of this menstrual cycle, I look back at that list. And I say, would letting go of any of these things allow me to pursue those things that I truly want? And Lauren, without a doubt, there is always something that I just need to let go. That's all.
I'm so excited for my next menstrual cycle after this.
For you.
Because it's like this whole experiment and project, and it's almost like it's going into it with intention.
Yes. It has been such a successful tool in my tool belt that my non-bleeding male-bodied cis partner says, Lauren, I'm jealous. Like, what could I do? Because I love how you reflect on your life and you edit out those things. And it has just become this little tool of reset. And so on day one, I also, if my body is really cramping, I really listen. And I really find the more intense the emotion, just like you were saying, right? The more loud it is, the more I stop to listen, because it's just in alignment with my ethic. It must be true, because my body has never, ever steered me wrong.
Yeah. Beautiful, Lauren. So I'm curious, as a sex coach and intimacy expert, what does an empowered, authentic sex life mean to you? And what are a few ways people can move toward that?
An empowered and authentic sex life looks like having the solo and partnered sex that you want. It looks like noticing, trusting, and valuing your needs, wants, and desires, not those of societal scripts, not those shown to us in media, not those concocted by some white man somewhere that you no longer align with. The things that resonate for you. I often tell folks that perhaps it's not that you don't want sex or don't want to talk about sex or don't want to engage in deeper intimacy. Perhaps it's that you don't want that sex or those conversations or that intimacy. We get to write our sexual scripts and stories. We get to know ourselves. There's a favorite quote of mine. I was always afraid to take, so I gave. It was not a virtue. It was a disguise. I think that as people in female bodies, especially when we can learn to take consensually, when we can learn to step into the integrity that is knowing what brings us pleasure, then we can decide with other people and other bodies what it is that we are willing to do, where it is that we're willing to play, and then everything opens up unto us.
Yeah. I think two things, like having boundaries is a lot of what has been like interwoven into our conversation, and having the courage to ask for what you want, which also has to start with knowing what you want. So what are some steps to really like get clear on what it is that we want? Maybe it's experimenting with sexuality. What are some tips you have for our listeners?
I like to say it is our right and responsibility to become the first and best and last lover to ourselves. So there in that basement apartment, I would make an entire ritual, and I encourage anyone to do this, out of an entire evening of making love to myself.
Wow.
I really got clear on how did I like to be made love to? What did I need first? Did I need the sensuality, the feeling of fabrics on my skin? Did I need to disconnect from my entrepreneurial adventures? Did I need to have something pleasurable on my lips? What was it that brought me in tune to who I was as a sexual being? And it was there also that I began to explore my own body. And again, I think that this is something we each have a right to and a responsibility for, to know who we are as sexual beings through someone else's touch, through engaging with another by how they experience us. So it often becomes performative. What I really found in that basement apartment was the way my body liked to be touched by my own hands. Not just our genital areas or our erogenous zones, our breasts and our genitals, but my entire body. What turned me on? A recent study, a favorite study of mine, has been all on erotic self-focus. And that is that most people in female bodies are turned on not by the other, not by their lover, but by themselves.
Yes.
We enjoy watching ourselves. We enjoy the sounds that we make. We enjoy seeing our own pleasure. And so if you have never watched yourself in a solo sex practice, set up a mirror. See how glorious you are. Film yourself, then watch it back. Start to understand why it is that you are desirable, because our own understanding of desirability, which is another's desire for us, life-changing.
Yeah. And then you're going to show up differently the next time you make love or are intimate with a partner with that energy of like, damn, I am my own sexual being. Like, you know what? Light some candles, dim the lights, put some roses on the bed for yourself, put on some sexy lingerie. Yeah.
It's
start to date yourself.
Yes. And I often remind folks that this responsibility does not end inside of partnership. So I am now happily partnered to a very non-gay man who is very attracted to my body and my soul. And yet my solo sex practice is still my sexual responsibility. Dating myself is still my responsibility. This does not cease. It is never another's job to take on the responsibility for our pleasure. No, pleasure is not something we give or receive. It is a physiological experience within ourselves.
And to be able to go to a partner and say, hey, here's how I like to be loved and touched and played with.
Yes. Is life-changing because, it's interesting when we do studies, it's that men are conditioned by culture to fear failing sex and women are conditioned by culture to fear sex itself. So interestingly enough, when I work with male-bodied people, they come to me despondent because they feel that they're failing something that they never were taught how to do. And so when we are able to take off of the other shoulders the responsibility for our pleasure, it really improves our partnered sexual encounters. I will tell you that this man that is now my partner, I met on what was supposed to be a one-night stand on a business trip to San Diego. And it was literally so magical, not because of his sexual skills, but because I knew so deeply what I wanted and was unafraid to go after it. So jokes on me, turned into
very
much
empowering, more. Very empowering. So you've now built a really important platform with Sex Ed for You. Will you tell us a bit about that and maybe how you envision the future of holistic sexuality education evolving?
So in school, when I took myself back to school because I thought, I want to know more about this. I feel like this is the missing link for me. I learned very quickly that sex is not everything. It is just a part of everything. That individuals inside of thriving partnerships could be so connected. And yet this one little crack, a incongruent understanding of what sexuality is, can literally crack apart healthy relationships. Or someone's obsession with the societal scripts of sex can so hinder them from finding their healthy relational partner. And so I really thought, I think that if we were all given incomplete and inaccurate understandings of sexuality because we grew up in countries without great sexuality education, I believe that we all have gaps. And so what could a world look like in which we were empowered through comprehensive and holistic sexuality education, and then also taught how to nurture our attachments with one another, taught how to sexually communicate, taught how to prioritize our needs, wants, and desires, taught how to celebrate these bodies that we're in. I think that if the World Health Organization says that sexual health is fundamental to the well-being of individuals, families, and communities, I think that we could heal the world. Wow. And Lauren, I am here to tell you that I see it happening. I see individuals coming into work and then finding a healthy partner and then building this sexually fulfilling and ethical and aligned and values-based sexual existence. And I see their friends going, "What's up, you guys? What's
the secret
going on?" Right? And so then it's starting to ripple out through social contagion to communities. And I really think when we look at our world right now and we look at all the shame and the taboo around things that have to do with our bodies and the bodies of others, I think this is the missing piece. Wow. And again, I don't think it's everything. I think it's just a part of everything. And we owe it to ourselves and to the next generation to get clear on who we are as sexual beings.
Yeah. Beautiful. Mic drop moment. That was, you're so right. And no one's talking about it.
No one. Because I deeply believe we've pushed it off. We've said, shh, it's not polite to talk about such things. And yet when we look at the perpetuation of continuing to say, shh, not polite to talk about these things, the people who continue to be harmed by that are not men in power. They are people in female bodies and the marginalized who have forever been harmed. When we instead talk about sexuality on platforms like yours, talk about them at kitchen tables, talk about them in boardrooms and legislative chambers, then we dispel this myth that it's not polite to talk about this. And instead we enhance values-based living and it heals the world.
So incredible. Thank you for bringing this to light.
Thank you for an opportunity to talk about my favorite thing.
Sure. So as we wrap up, is there one message or takeaway you would like to leave our audience with today?
You're not broken. The scripts that you were handed are outdated. They no longer align with you. You deserve the work. You deserve the discovery. You deserve to weed your sexual garden and discover who you are as an inherently perfect sexual being.
And maybe one action step they could take today.
I would pick up a book that resonates with you on sexual functioning, because there is so much research that bibliotherapy, the act of reading about sexuality and sexual functioning, can help you heal. And so I would pick up a book, whether it's Becoming Clitorate by Dr. Laurie Mintz, whether it is Come As You Are by Dr. Emily Nagoski, or if reading isn't your thing, I would go to my podcast, Sex Ed for You, and I would just listen to me and my employee talking about various different sexual things. I would give yourself the privilege of enlightenment and education on this topic so that you can see that it's not you, it's the scripts.
So helpful. And where can our listeners find you?
So many places. So Instagram's my favorite place to hang out if you are on a social platform. And you can find me at sex_ed_for_you. You can go to my website. If something resonated in your belly today, you can go to sexedforyou.com/free consult. I would love to chat with you about the sexual obstacles you're looking to overcome. If you want to get to know me and this silly partner of mine a little bit more, you can also go to that podcast, which is just the Partnership Podcast.
Beautiful, Lauren. Thank you so much for coming on today. This is such a fun episode. I have a date with myself tonight, so I'm looking forward to that.
You have that and an upcoming menstrual cycle.
Oh
I'm
my
so excited
gosh.
for you.
Yes,
So
me
excited.
too. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Have a
Thank you for
beautiful
having
day.
me.